In Module 1, we briefly discussed what types of DAOs there have been in the past. But DAOs are still experimental, and there is no consensus on what their use case should or will be. In fact, there has been debate on if DAOs can be useful. Some argue that highly decentralized governance is inefficient and unlikely to outperform traditional hierarchical organizations. They point to the challenges DAOs have faced so far as evidence that decentralized governance is wishful thinking. Some even predict that only centralized organizations can succeed in the future. The proponents, however, believe that there are benefits of DAOs that make them unique and beneficial. DAOs offer better alignment for stakeholders. They are egalitarian and rule-based, giving power to the real owners and contributors of organizations. DAOs are transparent and open source, offering alternative decentralized business models that could be complementary to centralized governance structures. But even the proponents of DAOs today acknowledge that DAOs are no panacea and are only appropriate in certain scenarios. For example, many are reevaluating the merits of running a venture capital fund via a DAO. More people seem to agree that something like the DAO may not be the best use case for DAOs. So what should be DAOs' use cases? There are no set rules, but some general principles apply. A DAO works best when the outcome is better, with distributed decision-making. For example, in judicial decisions, an average among several independently chosen judgments is probably fairer than just one of these judgments. There are many similar situations like this, such as in public goods funding, that usually see better outcomes with DAOs as the decision-making method. On the other hand, there are many opposite situations when centralized decision-making works better. That's when DAO's usage is perhaps less inappropriate. For example, pandemic response policies and military strategies may belong to this category. Another scenario for DAO usage is when censorship resistance is needed. Many decentralized protocols operate on decentralized networks. They often require decentralized governance to ensure the protocols can maintain censorship resistance. Finally, DAOs are appropriate when services can be disintermediated and executed automatically following a vote, such as distributing charity givings or completing certain transactions. There are probably more scenarios when DAOs are more likely to lead to better outcomes, but remember, DAO research and implementation is rapidly evolving, so everything could change in the future. Now we understand the most suitable use cases for DAOs, let's examine the limitations of DAOs. One major uncertainty of DAOs is the regulatory environment they operate in. Most jurisdictions around the world haven't defined their approach to this novel entity. There are signs that some governments may take enforcement actions before establishing a clear legal framework surrounding DAOs. This means any DAO protocols must closely follow regulatory developments and make sure they comply with any relevant regulations. Any DAO members and contributors should also be very careful when interacting with DAOs. They need to carefully evaluate the DAO's cybersecurity risks, potential liability, and tax issues. This extends to anyone interacting with DAOs, including third-party service providers and legal professionals. At the end of the day, all these legal uncertainties may hinder DAO adoptions. Nevertheless, there is hope that regulators will work toward providing a clearer legal environment for DAOs in the future. Another limitation is the governance challenges DAOs face. One common challenge is the so-called centralization risk, which refers to a small group of founders or token holders becoming the de facto control group of a DAO. It's common for blockchain projects to allocate large amounts of tokens to founding teams and venture backers. This usually leads to these groups holding a significant portion of the DAO's voting power. This is associated with another challenge, which is the fact that DAO voting sometimes stifles change and faces difficulty to adapt. Because it's hard to make changes to smart contracts, timely changes to DAOs are hard to make. This reduces the ability of DAOs to quickly evolve as conditions change. Both of these challenges can be addressed by setting up subgroups or sub-DAOs under the umbrella DAO. Sub-DAOs are essentially committees composed of groups of the DAO's members, tasked to evaluate specific tasks. This method avoids the rigid requirement to have all decisions made by the DAO's full members. Leaving certain specific decisions to a sub-DAO can alleviate centralization risks and make DAOs more versatile. Moreover, decentralized governance may not always produce good or timely decisions, particularly when complex issues are at hand. It echoes the centuries-old dilemma between efficiency and fairness. In summary, DAO governance still faces lots of challenges for it to deliver its promised advantages. Another common limitation of DAOs is that they are subject to hacks and coordinated attacks. We've learned about the deliberate attack on the DAO, and the list and types of DAO hacks are long and costly. Aside from smart contract vulnerabilities, malicious actors can buy votes or use Sybil attacks in order to skew a vote to benefit themselves. Despite these challenges, DAOs remain a powerful tool for decentralization. They make it possible to create alternative business models and novel organizational structures. You can easily join a DAO, create a DAO, and vote on proposals in a DAO to learn more about DAOs with hands-on learning. Of course, after you have carefully evaluated and managed the associated risks. Well, that's all for this last section of our decentralization course. You should have a solid understanding of dApps, smart contracts, and DAOs, and how they all help empower our decentralized future. In the next course, we'll take a deep dive in DeFi, arguably the most important decentralization trend. Definitely stay tuned to Binance Academy's courses by following us on social media and subscribing to our newsletters. See you soon.